Okay, in this video we're going to talk about reloading the custom modes on the Panasonic GH6, and this works across most Lumix cameras. So when I'm talking about custom modes, I'm talking about the C modes in the top dial, and if you're not using them then you probably should be, really, because it's one of the better kind of parts of these cameras. So we're specifically talking about, we've got C1 through 4, you may have C1 through 3 on your camera. But yeah, if you're not using those, there's a link to a video up in the corner on how you can use them. They're a really good way to kind of navigate the camera and customize it to however you want it. So essentially what we're talking about here is if we've got the camera switched on and let's say we're in manual mode, what we can do is we can sort of change our settings. So, if we go to say F20, for example, and then we jump into the shutter priority, which won't work, aperture priority, and then we've got F20. It carries across the profiles. When we change the dial, when we switch it off, switch the camera back on, you can see we're still at F20. We switch back to manual, we're still there. So essentially what it's doing is it's just retaining the settings that we're putting into the camera, as you'd expect. But in the C dials, by default, what you'll find is, so you can see here, I'm on F4, 180 degree shutter. I'm just leaving the cap on the camera, so we're never going to get correct exposure here, but we're basically just looking at the what's available there on the screen. So we've got F4, so then if I change that to, say, F8, and then I switch the camera off, switch it back on, you can see that's retained that at F8. You can see that it's retained it at F8 there, which is useful. But then if I come across from C2 back to C1, now you can see we're back to F4. So essentially what's happening here is just the way that the actual camera is set up by default. So as we switch between the custom profiles, they revert back to how we've saved them specifically. So if we stay in C, make edit, switch it off, switch it back on, they're retained. But if we switch across the profiles, they reset back to how we originally saved them. And we can actually change the way this works if we want to in the menu. So if we click into menu, jump into the wrench or spanner, and then the gear or cog, the next one over, it's the settings menu. We want this one here, custom mode settings. And essentially custom mode settings, we've been through quite a lot of this before, how you can add additional custom modes. I'll link that above if you haven't seen it. How to edit custom mode titles, again, I'll just link all these videos. But what we're looking for really is how to reload the custom mode. So if we jump into that, you can see we've got change recording mode is switched to on, return from sleep mode off, and turn the power on off. So this is exactly what we're seeing. So if we change the dial, it's reverting back to how it was, and if we're switching the camera off, it's not. So it might be that actually when you switch the camera off, you want it to then reboot back into the original settings you've saved. Or it might be that you're on a shoot and you're trying to use the camera more a kind of hybrid fashion where you're switching between a few custom modes. Maybe you've got some photo mode set up in one custom mode, you've got video mode set up in another, and it might be that you don't want to have to keep dialing back in the ISO, white balance, all of that stuff, because you're just constantly having to do it every time you change the dial. So what you can do is just switch this off. And of course, you can change this at any time. So it might be that you do this just before a shoot, or, however you kind of want to plan it. But the option's there. So you can see now if we change our f-stop, if we put that up to 8, and then I switch back into 2, and then back to 1 again, you can see we're still at 8. So it has retained that. It's not actually lost now when we turn the dial. So you can see there, that's really useful, like the options there. I will usually keep that on, except if I'm out shooting something kind of constant where I know I will be switching between custom modes. that's when I'll switch that one off. And sometimes I will actually have the power one set to on as well, so it just recycles my original settings each time I power the camera on. And again, it depends on use case and the user. You might want to use it in different ways. And you've also got select loading details here, so you can jump into this and you can sort of say exclude white balance or exclude certain settings from it. So it's just all down to how you want to use it, but it's useful to know that it's there in the camera and it's something that you can modify if you need to. So yeah, hopefully that's helped. If it has, give the video a like. If you want to see more content like this, then please check out the GH6 playlist on this channel and please subscribe.